Israel is not where Israel was. Like, the nation state of Israel in 2024 is not in the same place as where the Bible said the ancient Israel was. We're starting another read-along. I'm going to be going chapter by chapter through Shlomo Sand's The Invention of the Land of Israel from Holy Land to Homeland. Today I'll go over my takeaways from the introduction of this book, and what a banger of an introduction it was. I picked up this book because I've been thinking a lot more about what it means to get my people. See, back in October, I wasn't even trying to communicate with Zionist Jews because I knew there were so many people who were neutral, uneducated, or just silent on Palestine. But now, 8 months later, so many people in that neutral category have become activated and are in turn activating others about Palestine. So I've been thinking about how, as a Jewish person who has this platform and does read a lot of history, that maybe maybe it's my job to talk to Zionists. Or maybe at least sort of Zionist light Jews, those hanging around the borders of the ideology. With the way that Jewish communities and families and the entire Israeli government is fracturing at the seams, I think there are some Zionist Jews who are maybe starting to be susceptible to deconstructing their worldview. And to do that, I need to understand the Zionist mind and the pseudo-history they've been taught to punch holes in it. And nobody has made a career out of tearing the Zionist pseudo-history to shreds like Shlomo Sand. In this introduction, our author is very upfront about his personal history with the subject matter and his politics, which I appreciate. I don't 100% agree with his politics. He advocates for a two-state solution, which I think is nothing. The state of Israel has proven itself to be completely fascist, and it can't be allowed to continue any more than Nazi Germany could be allowed to continue being in power after World War II. As an anarchist, I'm in favor of a no-state solution. But if we have to compromise, at very least, whatever state replaces Israel cannot be an apartheid ethno-state. There must be religious and ethnic equality. Sand also opposes the right of return, meaning the right for all diasporic Palestinians to return from exile and for all of those who've had their homes stolen to return to those homes. He says because, the right of return would be a recipe for catastrophe. But catastrophe is already here for Palestinians. Catastrophe has been ongoing for 76 years. Catastrophe is getting bombed. The right of return does not have to mean catastrophe for Israeli Jews. It might mean having to give up the house you stole, maybe moving back to the US. That's hardship maybe, but not catastrophe, which is, again, what Palestinians are and have been experiencing for 76 years. So I don't agree with Shlomo's politics, but that's okay because I'm reading this book for the history, not for his politics. It's good to know what they are because I can keep an eye out for how might his bias be influencing his view of history. We're always reading critically over here. Sand starts off the intro sharing his personal story of being an IOF soldier in the 6 Days War of 1967. As he was crossing the then border into the hills above Jerusalem, he mentioned to his fellow soldiers that he had never been abroad. And they said to him, "Abroad? What are you talking about? This is the true land of your forefathers." The other soldiers had a feeling of entitlement to the land of Palestine that never made sense to Shlomo. Next, he shares the story of being set to guard the Jordan River, where Palestinians who had fled were returning in the night to try to get back to their homes. One day, his fellow soldiers arrested an elderly Palestinian man who had a large amount of money on him, and as Shlomo stood guard outside, they beat and tortured the man to death and then disposed of his body in the river. Shlomo was disgusted and horrified. He vomited, but he did not make any attempt to stop it, something that haunts him to this day, and eventually led him to write this book, because the entitlement that those other soldiers felt to the land of Israel and to the bodies, the lives of the Palestinians who inhabited it, that entitlement was always repugnant to Sand. And what he's showing with this book is that the history and the logic which creates that sense of entitlement is a whole bunch of bullshit and lies. Where readers might get confused in this introduction is tracking the different specific uses of the word Israel here. There's the state of Israel, biblical or ancient Israel, and the land of Israel. The state of Israel is the modern nation state established in 1948. Then there's ancient or biblical Israel, which he points out is actually just this small kingdom of land around the area of Samaria, currently in the West Bank. Bethlehem and Jerusalem to the south were never unified with Israel. They were the kingdom of Judea. And in fact, Israel is mentioned in the Bible as having far more sinners than Judea, and it's kind of like looked down upon. So even in the Bible, which please remember is not a history book or a property deed, there never was this giant, unified piece of land controlled by Jews. There were various different small Jewish kingdoms that were about the size of a city and its suburbs. And the worser of those areas, which God was not so happy with, was the Israel of the Torah. And there's a third Israel being discussed, which is the land of Israel, Eretz Yisrael in Hebrew. The land of Israel as a synonym for the Holy Land in general does not appear in the Torah and is in fact a Christian invention. This broader Holy Land was referred to as Canaan in the Bible, not Land of Israel. That phrase first appeared in the Gospel of Matthew, according to Sand, and only starts to appear in Jewish texts like the Mishnah and Talmud a century later. Around the same time, maybe not incidentally, that Romans adopted the name Palestina, which had been used informally for many centuries, as the official name of this area between the river and the sea. Land of Israel eventually did come to mean the entire Holy Land, in various Jewish writings, but it was not a term for like a unified Jewish kingdom still. It was just a term that meant these regions where lots of stuff in the Torah happened. Sand writes, nowhere in the long and diverse tradition of Jewish thinking were these divisions conceived of as borders of political sovereignty. Until Zionism, and not even the original Zionists, because those guys like Theodor Herzl used the word Palestine. It was only later 20th century Zionists who embarked upon this project of erasing the word Palestine from history and replacing it with Eretz Yisrael. I love how Shlomo goes on to drag Zionist scholars who use the term Eretz Israel in place of Palestine in some really absurd situations. Like when the OG Zionist Theodor Herzl's writings are translated into Hebrew, they replace the word Palestine with this term Eretz Yisrael, which he never used. In a 2004 Hebrew translation of the second book of Maccabees, the term Land of Israel appears in the introduction and footnotes 156 times, even though the Hasmoneans, who led the Maccabean revolt, had no idea they were leading a revolt within the territory bearing that name. When scholarly books written in other languages are translated into Hebrew, they routinely replace the word Palestine with Eretz Yisrael. And this erasure extends to people too. Pro-Zionist historians refer to Palestinians as Arabs of the land of Israel. And I've been looking at Zionist news sites lately just to see what people in Israel are consuming, and this same convention holds. You virtually never see the words Palestine or Palestinian coming from mainstream Israeli media. They use the word Arabs or Hamas. And so something I think important to understand about the Zionist brain is that just hearing the word Palestinian is radical to them. Like that word alone puts up their haunches and makes them defensive. Because the entire justification for the state of Israel relies on erasing the fact that Palestinians ever existed, and this lie that the land of Palestine has somehow always been Israel. And the point of this book, according to its author, is to deconstruct the concept of the Jewish historical right to the land of Israel. And I can't wait to talk about the next chapter. Congrats to Leah, who won last week's giveaway of the Free People's Village. This week's giveaway starts right now, and you can enter by donating to the fundraiser that's the first link in my bio. This week I'm raising money for the Murtaja family, organized by Uncle Syed, who's 23 years old. He's a traditional Dabka dancer. He's trying to raise the money to evacuate 15 family members, including a whole bunch of kids, baby Fadi here, a pregnant mom, and Amira here, who's 7 years old. And looking in those eyes, man, you can tell Amira has seen way too much horrific shit for a 7-year-old and is over it. So as you're deciding what to donate, $5 is the minimum, but I want you to look into Amira's eyes when you decide what you want to donate to this family this week. Let's raise enough money for Amira and all her siblings and cousins and all their grown-ups to be able to evacuate from Gaza as soon as the Rafah border opens. Hashtag Open Rafah Crossing. And to enter the giveaway, send a screenshot of your receipt to t4gaza@gmail.com. And then in the comments, tell me what shocked you in this video. Are you reading along? What else did I forget to mention that blew your mind in this chapter? And as always, you're amazing. You're my mishpacha, and I love you.